everybody. Welcome to our third workshop. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited to get started on this workshop. I think you all are going to enjoy our guest speaker this evening. I think gonna learn a lot. Our topic of our workshop this evening is on the topic of how do I prepare for a professional interview. So you're going into the interview, maybe you've gone to career fairs, maybe your mentors hooked you up and connected you with someone at their company, maybe you've gotten some referrals somewhere else. Doesn't really matter. You are about to step into the interview. Maybe you've already had interviews before. This workshop is about how to think about interviews differently. We're bringing in guest speakers who are experts on this topic from around the world to give you insight and wisdom on how to make the most out of the professional interview. So this workshop is going to be about 45 minutes long with, and I encourage you to ask questions throughout the workshop. I'm going to ask you 3 questions during the workshop, which I'll have you answer. That's how you get credit for being here. You're now midway through the program so far. You should have already had your first conversation with your mentor. Hopefully you've already started setting up your second conversation with your mentor. If you have not, or you're struggling to get in touch with your mentor, please email support@ambition-in-motion.com. We need to take care of you so then you can get connected and make the most out of this program. So, really, this program is all about how can you prepare for the first professional interview. Really, what you're selling your interviewer on is your ability, essentially your future potential opportunity. Essentially, you are selling them on your potential, because at the end of the day, people are not expecting you to come in and be the expert on XYZ topic. They are expecting you to be a willing learner and someone that's eager to gain knowledge and to be a better professional. If you can convey that, you will get the opportunity. But it will be competitive, especially in highly competitive industries. And I know that anybody that's in this program is more likely than not going into a career that's competitive. I mean, you would not have gotten a mentor had you not wanted to take your level, take your career, take your life to the next level. So with that said, I want to encourage you to keep your head up, keep applying, put yourself out there for more opportunities, and leverage the insight and knowledge that you're getting in these workshops to make yourself and to help you better prepare yourself for the interview. Now, before we get started into our main program, I want to ask you a quick question, and that question is, when it comes to the interview, how do you want people to feel about you? In other words, what feeling are you trying to convey about yourself when you are in an interview? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that, because I think if we are more intentional about how we want other people to feel about us in the interview, our likelihood of actually having that happen increases substantially. I mean, I've talked about in past workshops, strategy, story, state, which I will talk about in a moment, but this is a really big part of the story part. Like, what is the story that you're telling yourself? Now, I think sometimes we can interpret that as psyching ourselves up, getting ourselves confident, getting ourselves pumped for why we're going to be successful. And I think that's great. But I think if we could take it to another level, that being intentional about how we want other people to perceive us. So if we want them to perceive us as confident, or if we want them to perceive us as knowledgeable, or if we want them to perceive us as eager to learn and having potential, it could be a variety of things. But what I really want you to do is I really want you to identify feelings that you want other people to feel about you when you enter their world. Because you can be intentional about that. Your likelihood of having them actually feel that is much greater. But if you don't set the intention, you have no idea how they're going to feel about you. You've got really no control over it. But if you intentionally think to yourself, I want people to think of me as confident. Okay, what am I going to do that's going to convey convey confidence? Really, it's all about whatever that feeling you want to convey. Make sure that you are taking actions and being intentional about ensuring that other people view you that way, and that you come in trying to actively think about actions that you can take that will help other people perceive you in that light. So let's start under the next part of our workshop. Now, I've talked about this in the past before, and I've talked about this in previous workshops, but one of the big things that I always love to stress is the 3 keys to success in the program. There are 3 of them. That is your strategy, that is your story, that is your state. I bring it up every single time because it is that important. And the reason why it's important is because if we are not honing our strategy, honing our story, honing our state, we are not setting ourselves up for successful. If we let someone else drive our roadmap for us, we could end up in a location that we do not want to be. But if we are intentional about our story, if we're intentional about our strategy, if we're intentional about our state, we are much more likely to get to where we would like to go. It's kind of like the law of attraction. When we put it out there, and we put it out to more people, and we're more intentional about what we want to accomplish, and we're more intentional about how we are going to convey our bodies and ourselves to other people, the likelihood that it comes back to us is much greater. So I want to talk about state. State is the most important thing. Like physically, where are you at in your life, in your world? What is going on? I don't care how stressed you are. I don't care how mad you are. I don't care how dejected you are. I don't care of anything negative going on in your world. If you can get yourself into a state conducive for being successful, especially for the interview, you will be successful. I'm a big proponent of power poses. I'm a big proponent of screaming at the top of your lungs and dancing out. In fact, I'd like to do that with you right now. So for the next 30 seconds, what I like you to do is I like you to stand up. I like you to shimmy it out. I like you to shake it out. I like you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just scream at the top of your lungs at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Just let it out, let it loose, let it go, because you've got nothing to lose. I don't care if it's a popularity contest. I don't care if you're in a library. I don't care if you're in a house. What do you have to lose? This is not a coolness effort here. It's about making an impact and preparing yourself physically for being successful. What is the price of success? Getting yourself into a state conducive for being successful. Maybe looking a little weird to some of your colleagues, coworkers, or peers, but what is that cost to you in the long run? Nothing. They're going to say, you know, hey, what were you doing? Why were you dancing? Why were you screaming at the top of your lungs? You say, hey, I'm getting myself in a state conducive for being successful. Maybe they've never heard about it before. Maybe they've never learned. You can educate them on this. So don't worry about how other people are perceiving you when you are going to get yourself into a state that's going to level up your game, especially when it comes to the interview. Now, you may not want to do this in the office of a business that you are about to interview in, but you could certainly do it in the bathroom, in a bathroom stall. Get yourself into a 2-minute power pose. Stand up like Superman or Superwoman, or put your arms out like as if you're a star. There's a lot of things that you can do to get yourself into a state conducive for being successful, but you should be doing something, because if you're not, you are letting the way that other people perceive you essentially come up to chance. And you don't want to chance it, especially for the opportunity of a lifetime. And you have no idea which opportunity is the opportunity of a lifetime. It may not be this job. It could be the next one. If you make a positive impression in an interview and you may not land that job, that interviewer could have really loved how you interviewed, and that person may not be at that company for forever, or they might be, and they might come up with a new job. They might reach out to you personally to have you come and interview. It's all about the relationship. It's all about how they perceive you. It's all about that impression you leave. Your state is critical. Now, what is the story you tell yourself for why you are going to be successful? This is something we kind of did earlier when I asked you, how do you want other people to feel about you in the interview? This is a great exercise to prepare yourself for a professional interview. If you are intentional about how you want other people to feel about you, you are going to put yourself into a position to succeed, because then you're much more likely to manifest that outcome. Literally, law of attraction, putting it out there. I want other people to feel XYZ about me. Confident, smart, intelligent, well prepared. I don't care what it is. Maybe it's a weakness that you have, but you like to have them perceive it as a strength. Maybe it's a strength that you have that you'd really like to amplify even as a greater strength. Doesn't matter, but set an intention of something. Because if you don't set an intention of something, it could be wild in terms of what they actually perceive of you. Now, the last key is your strategy. What are the things that you're going to do to make the most out of this interview? Are you going to come prepared with questions? Are you going to come prepared with doing background research on the company? Are you going to make an intentional, focused effort on taking notes during the conversation, so then you're asking poignant, direct questions to the interviewer that are relevant about his or her life? Are you going to do the things that you need to do to be the most successful in an interview, or are you not? So the strategies you're going to learn from our guest speaker later on in this workshop, I think you're going to really enjoy what our guest speaker has to say. But before we jump into our guest speaker, I want to talk about one final thing, and that is getting yourself into a routine that can help you prepare for an interview. One of the things that I like to do, have an accountability partner. This could be it could be anybody. But what you want to do with your accountability is you want to share with your accountability partner 3 things that you learned this week and 1 thing that you've done to get closer to that internship or job. What this does, and you might think this sounds silly, you might think this sounds crazy, it could be another student in the program, it could be a friend of yours, does not matter. But what we've learned, what we've observed is that students who land jobs and internships through this program are substantially more likely to actually land that job and internship if they told other people about their experience. One of the questions we ask at the end of the question is, on average, how many other people did you tell about your experience in the program? What we ended up learning was that when a student told 20 or more people about their experience in Ambition in Motion, their likelihood of also landing their job and internship was substantially higher than students who didn't. There's a direct correlation to you telling more people about your experience and what you're learning in this program to actually landing the outcomes you like than not. So I want to challenge you to identify an accountability partner. Share with them 3 things that you've learned this week and 1 thing that you've done to help you get closer to landing that job or internship. Now, the other big thing that I want to bring up with you is a referral program. So we are now starting to open up the applications. And 1, I'd love for you to be in part of the program again. You can get a new mentor, you're going to get new content, you're going to learn from new speakers. But more importantly, I want you to encourage other students to get involved as well. We have a referral program for you, so then you are discounted to get in the program next semester. Essentially, anytime that anybody applies, we ask them, how'd you hear about us? If they write in your name, you get credit. If you don't mind being an ambassador for this program, I'm helping encourage other students to get involved and take advantage of this. I would greatly appreciate it because it would help us make a bigger impact on more people, which is really what our goal is. So let's jump into our workshop. I'm so excited for you to meet our guest speaker. I'm so excited to transition into this next part of the workshop. Remember to answer the 3 questions that we asked during the workshop. That's how you get credit for being here within 24 hours of the workshop going live. If you got any questions, any concerns, any issues with anything at all, please email support@envision-in-motion.com. We will answer those questions, concerns, and issues. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited for you to meet our guest speaker. Welcome to our workshop this evening. I'm so excited to dive into our topic. That is, how do we prepare for the interview? So we got a lot of things going on. We got COVID, and maybe we're not doing an in-person interview anymore. Maybe we're doing it virtually. Maybe we are doing in person, but there's some other restrictions going on. Maybe we're not doing the handshake anymore. There's a lot of different changes going on when it comes to the interview and how we can put ourselves in the best position to prepare for the interview. Fortunately, we've got an incredible guest with us here this evening. We have Marcie Anderson. Marcie is a passionate, highly motivated human resources executive looked to for strategic leadership with proven success in change management and high growth environments. She's a trusted senior advisor and counsel to the highest levels of leadership with demonstrated success in creating people strategies that maximize employee engagement and align with organizational goals. Marcie, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Garrett.
So I know that I just kind of gave a brief overview, high-level intro of you, but I would love if you maybe could just to begin, introduce yourself and just share with us a little bit more about your work and how you got into just this HR work. And yeah, let's start with that.
All right, well, we'll try to keep it brief since it now spans, I think, about 25 years of career experience. But I actually got into HR back in the day when we weighed people for interviews, which is usually shocking for folks to think, how could you still be alive and you were part of that? I'm proud to think maybe I age well, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't that far in the past.
Wait, what did you do for people for interviews?
I weighed them. We weighed them. So I worked for Southwest Airlines. That's where I got into recruiting. And Southwest Airlines they were the last airline to carry height and weight requirements as their BFOQs, Bonafide Occupational Qualification, for their frontline employees. So we weighed you. And if you didn't make weight, we walked you out and said, come back when you can.
What? That seems like that's like illegal. Is that like?
No. That was all the way through. Let's see, we probably ended that program maybe like in 98 or 99.
What? Mm-hmm. So if you were overweight, you could literally be discriminated against and not get a role because like
it was deemed a BFOQ. Yeah.
Sorry, what is a BFOQ?
Bonafide Occupational Qualification. So it's okay to have certain restrictions like a doctorate degree if you're a doctor, right? That's a bona fide occupational quality. You have to have that medical degree to do your job. For a while, there are some programs, and I'm no expert in the medical side, but like firefighters may have weight requirements because they've got to be able to run those stairs or do certain pieces like that. Well, we had it in the airline industry. We just happened to be the last carrier to give it up. Now you got to remember, Southwest Airlines was the hot pants. Right? We wore the hot pants. Like we had a look to who we were at the time, and we held on to that as long as we could, which in theory, yes, like we can sit here today and say shame on us for doing that. But at the same time, that company had so many positives to it. I would still, I continue to say Southwest Airlines is one of the best employers in the organization. We just happen to be the last one to give it up. but Southwest taught me behavior-based interviews, so carried that through, and from recruiting moved into generalist activities, from generalist activities up to the highest level of HR, the chief HR officer, and then chose to kind of dive back into the passionate side, which was HR business partner. And now today I'm actually back over talent acquisition for the entire US portion of Ingram Micro, which is a 35,000 employee organization.
Love that. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
super cool. So when you say behavioral interviews, what does that mean? I think for a lot of students that might be curious about this, they might be going through this right now, or they might be thinking about this. What is a behavioral interview?
Yeah, so that's super question. When I think of behavior-based interview, it follows like that STAR rhythm, which is I ask you, Garrett, you tell me that you are really good at time management. I would like for you to give me a time, give me an example where time management was an issue for you. What was the situation? What did you do about it? What was your action and what was the result? So it allows that flow that provides the recruiter historical examples of where you can say you're good at something, but I require you to provide an example that validates your statement.
Ooh, so I mean, one, I love the STAR model. I've heard of that before, but I think there was something unique about this that you had conveyed, which was, tell me about a time that you struggled with this, which insinuates there was a level of adversity, some form of hurdle that someone had to overcome, which forced them to become better, which means that they have to reveal a little bit of a time that they weren't so great, but what they learned from it. I feel like so often in the interview process, we think to ourselves is like, how can we boost ourselves up as being like as perfect and amazing as possible? When, I mean, you and I have discussed this before in the past, vulnerability is such an attractive trait, but how do we find that? How do we strike that right balance of vulnerability?
Yeah, and what's really important is, you're right, it's how do you strike the right balance of vulnerability? How do you display it in an interview in such a way that helps show to the hiring manager or recruiter that you have emotional awareness, that you have self-awareness that says, I'm great. Trust me, there are a lot of things I do well. There are a handful of things I don't do so well. But I want to talk to you about how I overcome, how I stay aware of what those are so that it makes me better every day. When we think about strength finders, and a lot of times when someone does the Gallup strength finders, they're only focused on the top 5 because that's the free one, right? The free data is the top 5. I say, spend the $49.99, get your full 34, because we need to be aware of what's at the bottom. What's at the bottom, because we tend to over-index on what's on the top, which causes us to detract from what's on the bottom. And we have to be very aware of who we are and focus on lifting those up. So if you're in an interview and the hiring manager says, so, what are your weaknesses? I love that question. I mean that sarcastically. I like to say, look, we all have challenges in what we do. Talk to me about what your challenges are, and give me examples, going back to the behavior based, give me examples of how you focus on those challenges to turn them into strengths, right? So if a hiring manager or recruiter says, hey, what are your weaknesses? I like to say, hey, we all have them. I prefer to look at them as challenges, and then let me talk to you about how I'm aware of them and examples I've done to ensure that they don't fall down there at the bottom of the pile, that I'm always working on them. And again, it's self-awareness. Hiring managers want to hear you're self-aware and that your ego can be kept in check.
You know, what I really loved about that example that you just what I really loved about what you kind of described there, what is this notion of how to handle a question that might be difficult, which I would imagine takes a ton of practice. Like I would inherently, when I hear the question, like, tell me about your biggest weakness, I would probably just go right in and answer the question. But what you're saying is, hey, everybody's got weaknesses. I choose to see them as challenges. And, here's a scenario where I was faced with a challenging scenario, and this is how I handled that sort of situation. Am I kind of hearing that right?
Turn it around. Like, I have my favorite story of where I accidentally sent this branded clock to 3 different brands. And the reality is I made the mistake because I went too fast, right? And we can say, because I had a lot on my plate, I was doing multiple roles. But at the end of the day, all of that is deflection. The reality is I moved too fast. So I keep that clock on my desk. It's at my desk at work. And it is my constant reminder that says, sometimes you move too fast, Marce, you need to slow down. And it's right there.
That's
It's
some
right
great
there.
imagery. And I love
that tells the manager and the recruiter that says, hey, like, I know I can screw up. We all screw up, but here's what I do to help mitigate it going forward.
I love the reminder of it. I think though, for some students, like some of them might struggle. I think everybody has those flaws and those flawed moments, but sometimes like some students haven't fully come to grips with them yet. Like we haven't processed it. We haven't processed this failure. And so we really are holding onto it tight and hoping that nobody finds out about it. I'd be curious to know, like, how do you encourage people to just pull out just that like an example I can think of from one of my mentors. He is in sales, and he, for his company, was pitching Coca-Cola on an idea, and he was picking up lunch for the group. They were eating lunch together. And when he opened up the bag, guess what drink he got? Pepsi.
Oh, Pepsi.
He came in with Pepsi. He's just like, the pizza place I went to, I just said, give me some cola. And they gave him Pepsi, like a liter of Pepsi in the pizza order. And they laughed it off, and they were able to work through it, and they were able to get the business. But it was super funny to see like that sort of scenario happen. But how, as students, how can we own a failure? Or like we think like, oh, I don't have a failure. I don't have a moment where I fell flat on my face. You probably do. How can we pull that out of ourselves?
Yeah, so we all have, yes. Yeah, we all have the failures. If it's a great question, and I pause a little bit to say, it is those moments where I don't want to say go watch a video, go read a book, because there's a million of those things out there. Actually, just spend time with yourself and a pen and a paper. We are so busy looking for those answers in data or in someone else's book or in someone else's words. If we take time and we really reflect, if you're going to go into an interview for a job, and you can go out and you can find a million different interview questions, take those and just sit down and spend time with your heart to write them out. You can definitely reflect back and probably come up with 5 different answers to any given question. What you are going to need to do, which is part of the preparation for an interview, is determine which one of those answers, if that question is asked, is going to best serve how you can be successful in the role. Does that make sense? So I know this is probably geared towards students. I know this is geared towards students. So I say to the 21 and up, grab a glass of wine that can help just release your mind a little bit and spend time reflecting. One can't just go read those interview questions online and then go walk into an interview and be successful. It takes preparation. It's why you don't get the final exam on day 1 in a semester class. You've got 16 weeks to learn the material. The same needs to be done for an interview. And it takes a lot of core inner work to be able to answer those questions in a successful way. We find a lot of candidates who just come in and their answers are so surface level. And we, trust me, we get that too, because you're a collegiate level. You don't have the level of experience in a corporate world to answer it, but you have it in your personal. You have it in a sport you've done. You have it in a club you've been a part of. You have it in a moment in the lunchroom. It's there. It doesn't have to be corporate. It just has to be personalized. So and always showing at the end of it, it goes back to that STAR model, always going back to the end of this is, what was the result? What did I learn from it that I pull through? It's like a ribbon. I pull it through to the next similar experience.
So many things. So first, I want to ask the students a question. Post in the comment section, when was the time that you totally failed, bombed, just fell flat on your face? Post in the comment section. This is a great avenue to just get started practicing with admitting and acknowledging a time that you totally bombed. Post the situation in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that. But then the question I have is, well, so one, I loved how you said like it flows from it follows. So there's this book called Persuasion by a guy named Dr. Robert Cialdini, and he talks about how using terms like but, yet, and however can be blockers in terms of people's mental focus and consciousness of when they're having a conversation. However, if you are saying something negative followed by but, yet, or however, and then turn it into something positive, people will focus on the latter part of whatever you say. So whenever you're asked to give a time that you were, or that you made a mistake, or what your biggest weakness is, if you can start it with an area that you're weak, follow it by but, yet, or however, and finish with something positive or optimistic, you're much more likely to engender the second mental, like people are more likely to focus on the second thing than the first, which I think is kind of what you're getting at when you say like, allow it to flow through into the next point. But Marcie, the question I have for you is, how do we ensure that we're not robotic? Like, how do we balance that preparation, but preparation to a point that it comes off smooth? Sometimes I'll hear students and they'll be like, this is my elevator pitch. And it's like, very much seems like a pre-rehearsed, pre-recorded statement. How can we make sure that it comes off normal and conversational?
And that is tough. And I've interviewed lots of students who are like that. I've interviewed lots of adults who have stayed like that. And so much of that is just comfort. So the more interviews you do, the more exchanges with strangers that you do. If you find ways to get out and be involved with strangers, that can give you more comfort. Even those who are extroverted can get very nervous in an interview. The sticky pits, right? Let's go back to the superstar. I mean, the sticky pits are real. The sticky pits are real. So take that moment before you go into the room. And I'm almost 49 and I do a lot of public speaking. I still take that moment just to clear my head and say, at this point, it's like cramming for a test. You can't cram for a test anymore after a certain point. You got to walk away. You got to go get your Chinese food. You got to go watch your movie. You got to just let it go. Because at some point, you just have to be you and let it come out as you. And so take that moment. Take those 2 minutes between your car and the building and say, at this point, for me, I'm faith-based. I'm going to give it over to God. He's going to open the door or he's going to close the door. And as I reflect back on it, I've done everything I can to prepare for the moment, and I'm going to be who I am. And if I don't fit what they're looking for, that's okay. I think we get so hung up on fear of rejection that we're not embracing why the rejection is happening, right? And recruiters are getting 1,000 candidates, and the candidate experience sucks, and it just sucks anymore. First one to tell you that, right? So any time as you close an interview, you can say, okay, at this point, I'm fairly confident you've been able to have a good time to assess whether or not I'm a good fit. What do you see are the gaps between what I've explained to you and what you see as the need, so that before you walk out the door, you have an opportunity to either shore up that gap or for them to tell you, hey, I've appreciated the time, but this is what I was really looking for and I just don't see it. You can either argue that you have it, or you can accept the reality as you don't, thank them for the time and move on. Rejection is okay.
Whoa, that's a golden question. Can you repeat that one more time? For any students that didn't quite catch that question right there is gold, Marcie. Can you say that one more time?
Rejection is okay.
No. The question that you asked, so then you can suss it out.
I love this question, and it never gets asked enough. At the end of the time, ask them, you've had 45 minutes, you've had an hour with me. I've really appreciated the time. I'm thankful we got to know each other. At this point, what gap do you see between what I've explained to you as my abilities and what you're looking for in the role? So that I can either assure you the gap doesn't exist, or we can agree and we can let this move on.
That is gold. Students, write that down. Rewind this. Go back to that. She said it now twice. That question is powerful. I've not heard that one before, Marcie. I love that question because I think you're absolutely right. Like, we so often formulate a story in our mind for why we didn't or did land an opportunity, but we really don't know what's going on. Sometimes companies just make a decision for one reason or another. Like, one of our speakers earlier this semester we were talking about how to get your foot in the door for professional opportunities. And she was conveying how when she had moved to England, she really wanted to work for the University of Cambridge. So she applied for a role and she ended up not getting the role. And then one day she was at a department store shopping and she saw the woman who was interviewing her and she's like, oh, she's such a jerk. She like, you know, must have not really liked me or whatever. And lo and behold, they're standing right next to each other in line. And she was nice and cordial. She was like, hey, how are you? And she was like, oh, hey, how are you? Like they remembered the interview and that sort of thing. She's like, hey, we actually have another open position. I think you'd be a great fit for. Would you be open to interviewing? And Donata, that was their guest speaker from earlier this semester. She was like, of course, yes, I would. I absolutely. But in her mind, before she said, hey, she's like, this person hates me. They must think I'm the worst. They didn't give me the job. But in reality, it wasn't the right fit for that specific role.
Yeah. And you have no idea who you're competing against. You have no idea what is the unwritten agenda that's hidden behind that job. You just don't know. So ask the question.
That's such a powerful question. So let's say we've done the interview. Let's say we've done the interview. What is the best way to follow up? Like, let's say we haven't heard back yet. I think this is something that happens often. We haven't heard back yet and we don't want to be antsy, but we don't want to be like seeming uninterested. What is the most appropriate way to follow up? That's what I'm asking.
It's a great question, and I don't know that there's a good answer to it. There's the expectation that the recruiter gets back to you in a timely fashion. Well, the reality is the recruiter is often the middle person. They're playing monkey in the middle between the candidate and the hiring manager. And so the recruiter's chasing the hiring manager. The hiring manager's got 1,000 different things on their plate. Recruiting is the last thing they want to do. And then all of a sudden the job is changing and all these different dynamics, and the recruiter should be communicating with the candidate. Reality is, I've already said, recruiting, is an overloaded project right now. There's too much and not enough talent acquisition specialists who actually care about their people. That's the hard part. We presume that the recruiter cares. I would love to say every recruiter does. I think sometimes they're just recruiting machines. And you talk about the robotics in an interview. Sometimes that's really the recruiting machine, because unfortunately there's just not enough focus and resource on that as a customer experience. So circling back to long-winded, the question is, you as the candidate should keep hitting up the recruiter. If you've got the hiring, if the recruiter says, if the recruiter's non-responsive, hit the recruiter up again. If the recruiter is non-responsive and you've got the communication for others that you've interviewed, hit them up. I do not necessarily recommend calling, because we've moved past the world of calling. Like, I will fully tell you, I have an office phone in my office. I don't sit in my office anymore. I'm not there. So the reliability of someone being at the other end of that office phone is just less than ideal. So go through your methods. If you've got LinkedIn connections, go through the LinkedIn connection. You never know, that recruiter's getting 100 hits a day. It could just be buried in the priority of what's burning on as a fire in front of them. But again, use every tactic you can. Go the right path initially, which is your recruiter. If you're still not getting traction, start hitting the people you know in the organization via LinkedIn or email. Hit it up. It's okay, because at the end of the day, we should be getting an NPS score on how we're performing. And if that's happening, it should be a trigger that there's an inner workings problem. Long-winded to say sometimes that the recruiter just doesn't have the capacity to do the service that we should give a student. And so therefore the student has to be a squeaky wheel.
Got it. That's interesting. That makes sense.
Persistence.
Yeah, I love that. Persistence pays. I'm just like, all I've got is the imagery in my mind of like the movie Zoolander, where he's been like asleep for days and then he wakes up and he goes through his voicemail machine and it just says, you have 100,000 messages. I'm envisioning like that's the next time you go into your office is what you're gonna hear.
That's a recruiter's life. So appreciate that's a recruiter's life and just be persistent.
That is a bit more than usual.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask the question around offers. Let's say, because for a lot of times students, you're going to get an offer in the fall, but you're not going to start till the spring. You're not going to start for months out. What if I get an offer and they don't tell me when they want to hear back? Is there a timeline I should be assuming? What if I get multiple offers? How do I go about weighing that? How do I communicate if I'm waiting for an offer? Like what is the most appropriate, effective way to go about doing this in a way that maintains respect and the relationship with the company, but at the same time is the best move for myself?
Yeah, so that's actually a really great question. And I experienced that a lot when I worked for the construction company that I did, because we had an internship pipeline that you interned, you would convert to a portion of you would convert to a graduate, the other portion was coming in as graduates, but recognize that yes, in engineering specifically, right, you are locking in October for a May start. So if an employer extends you an offer, you have to realize you're holding up a spot that another person could take. So you've got to put your heart into that decision, and you can accept it and you can rescind it in April. Like, we get that, and we get that other things happen, but also recognize that that entire time you kept a seat from someone else. And so I understand an associate and a student wants to keep their options open. Totally get it. Want to keep your options open. At the same time, your decision to keep your options open are limiting someone else's future. And I just want you to be aware of that. Like, I just want you to be aware. And we want a new hire who is excited to come on board. So part of that is, hey, if we're not giving you a lucrative offer that it makes you excited, we don't have a culture that makes you excited, then we want you to decline it. If you're on the fence about it, I'm not 100% sure that you'll be an engaged employee when you do come. So if you're not excited to take it on and then love it, seriously consider declining it for the good of the company, for the good of you. I know that's harsh. Like, I don't think any student wants to hear me say that. I don't think they do. But any good employer, again, they've got a pipeline of candidates. And think about if you were the candidate who wasn't getting an offer, you were the candidate who were like, well, we'll know more in a month. Well, we'll know more in a month. Well, we can't give it to you because we don't know what the person in front of you is doing, right? Like, what's that old pooper get off the pot?
Yeah.
Because we want you to be excited about it. And the more you delay in making a decision, the more we question our decision to have given it to you in the first place. And now you're starting to create an employment relationship that is already built on doubt and questioning.
That's interesting. That's so as the company, as a representative of the company, do you there's a lot of questions that come to mind here. I mean, one, as a representative of the company,
that's tough.
Yeah.
But don't go interviewing in October if you're not ready to make a decision.
Well, I think there's so much conditioning that says, hey, we need to make a decision,
and
because we fear that we won't have an opportunity. Like, when do we pass something up?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No. I just go back to weigh out when you get an offer, or when you're getting close to offers with employers. If you're interviewing multiple employers, know what your minimum level of know what's acceptable to you, know what's important to you. And if that employer isn't hitting all those marks, so you're thinking, I'm going to wait for this, I'm going to hope someone else gives it to me, then why are you even considering them to begin with, especially in a market that's like today, where it's a candidate's market?
So it's really interesting. One thing you brought up was this notion of like, hey, if you're kind of doubtful about this, don't take the offer. I'd be curious, like, there's a couple things that come to mind. I'd be curious to know if businesses are upfront about that, just full transparency at the beginning, or is it kind of implicit? Let's start with that. That's, I think, the starting question.
Well, I mean, I think it depends on the employer.
Yeah.
It depends on the culture of the employer. Not everyone is transparent. And it kind of made me pause a little bit and say, look, if you don't feel 100% like you want that job when the offer's been extended to you, ask for a follow-up interview, ask to talk to someone else, ask to talk to a recent graduate who's in the position, so that you can get more clarity, so that you can make that decision quickly. That might be best, but every employer has their own agenda, and that's part of the vetting process. An offer and a job employment relationship has to be good for both sides of the house, right? Good for the candidate, good for the employer. And if you're still not sure, you need to vet it more so that you can be sure and make a decision and close the door or sign it off.
I'd love to take a moment to ask the students a question just so that they can clarify for themselves. What are the things that you need to know about a prospective employer before you're willing to say yes? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that. I think that's something that students don't think enough about, as to like, what are my own prereqs? What are the things that I need to have in an offer? And maybe like it checks the box for money. Maybe it checks the box for location or work-life balance or whatever the things that I'm interested in. Sure, if it checks those boxes, that's great and all. But there might be additional boxes that I'd love to learn about that maybe you as a student need to ask for in the interview process, because I would imagine not many students say, hey, I'd love to chat with somebody who's in my role currently that you're hiring me for, just so I can get a one-on-one and learn about what their experience is like.
And you have every right to ask that question. And part of it, again, every company does their recruiting different. Every company invests in it differently. But if you're not talking to the hiring man, if you're only talking to the recruiter, red flag. If you're only talking to the hiring manager, red flag. When I've taken any position I've talked to everyone, I've talked to the person I support, the HR leader, and then people inside the business, because you will always learn new things about it. Today, it's all about ERGs, employee resource groups. Ask them about the ERGs. If there's an ERG that you are passionate about, ask to talk to someone about that ERG, because a company can have an ERG and yet it may not be strong where you are. And so if if it's a geographically spread organization, if there's a strong women's forum, for example, well, can I talk to someone who's local in that forum? I want to hear what their initiatives are, what they're doing, how the company is investing in it. Companies can have ERGs and put no investment in them, but claim they have an ERG. Companies can claim they're our best places to work. That's just a rubber stamp. So no to ask to talk to people. If you're questioning at all, ask to talk to more people. And then again, just don't drag it out 6 months to make a decision. Ask to talk to people, shore up your decision, make it, and move on.
Love that. And I love the fact that you brought up employee resource groups. I know that employee resource groups exist, but I've never heard of an applicant asking about ERGs in the interview process, but it should be. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's.
But you look at surveys and you ask these students, what's important to you? Community, culture, these pieces are important to you, but you're not asking questions about it. You're asking, what's the pay? Do I have to come into the office?
Yeah, that's so funny. Those are like the least critical components to the role. But I mean, they're components, but they're so superficial. They're so like transactional. They're very high end. They're things that every job offer you're going to get is going to have some policy around where you can work and how much you're going to get paid.
Yes. So it's all about who you work with.
Yeah.
That creates the sticky factor, who you work with.
I was actually just reading, I'm in the middle of reading the book Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, and he's in the book talking about how Amazon, and I believe I'm paraphrasing this right, because I do audiobooks, but I was listening to this morning. He's talking about how Amazon will pay you $5,000 to leave. Like at the end of the year, Amazon say, hey, I'll pay you $5,000. And then for every subsequent year you're on, they'll add another $1,000 to it. Because if you don't want to be here, we don't want you to be here either. So you can take.
Yeah, I feel like that was started by the guy from Zappos.
Yeah,
Zappos
Tony Hsieh. Yeah.
And I 100% agree. I always talk about, look, it's not about just coaching people up, it's coaching people out. It's, I want you to be here. And if you don't want to be here, let's talk about a transition plan. It goes back to that question at the end of the interview. And I know we're not talking about employment, we're talking about interviews, but it goes back to, if you don't want to be here, life is a choice. And if there's anything people learned in COVID, they've got lots of choices. And that having that feeling of being stuck is no longer an option. It's not a mental wellness option for you. So If the job doesn't feel good in the interview and you get to that point, rejection is okay. Take it and move on. The door was meant to be closed.
I love that. I love that. I mean, I would imagine that for a lot of students, though, there's this identity crisis because we have this vision for where we want to work. We have this thought of like, oh, I would love to work for Google. I'd love to work for a Fortune 500 company. I'd love to work for this investment bank or whatever. And we ignore all the other red flags around it because we're choosing to see the rosy nuggets. How do we, do you have any advice for people that just like to almost do like a rosy nugget audit where they can just be like, okay, cool, these are the rosy nuggets, here are the other, I mean, I've heard of SWOT analysis, but is there a way to even go like deeper into that to like be conscientiously aware and appropriately weigh the negatives and the positives together?
Wow. You know, I don't know that I have got a specific answer for that. The SWOT is always the go-to, and yet someone like me who's not a super detailed person, the SWOT is like the bane of my, you want me to do what? Like, seriously? So, but it goes back to what I said before, which was the pencil and the paper and the gut check, taking what you read on the internet and actually reflecting and taking the time. So I really feel like it goes back to that. It goes back to that. It goes to, so my son's in college, right? I told you I'm an empty nester at this point. I know they all come back, but right now they're gone. And he's at school and he's trying to find a part-time job. And you know how many signs are up that says hiring, 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 hiring. You think he can get a call back? He can't. He's calling them and not getting a call back. And I say, reflection number one, if you have a hiring sign and they're not contacting you, maybe that's not where you want to be. Like, that is going to be it could be indicative of your employment relationship. If they can't be engaged from the very beginning when they need you, how will they be engaged once they have you? So you know, taking those reflection moments and the SWOT analysis and your conversation about really like finding the truth. I'm a Cy Wakeman fan. If you're familiar with Cy Wakeman, love Cy Wakeman, love her reality-based leadership model, love her, you know, taking your story and finding the truths in it. So you write out your story, write out what is that story in your head, and then go back and underline the truths. And only thing you deal with from that point forward is the stuff that's underlined. And that's probably a great way to look at your SWOT in a different viewpoint, to write the story out, underline the truths, and that's what you have to deal with. So what do you want? Write it all out and then really go back and indicate what you really want. And then after an interview and when you have a job offer, write it out, underline the truths and how do they compare? Because it's like putting everything through the sifter in the kitchen. You not only deal with what comes out at the bottom.
I love that. I think a thing that we don't, as applicants, as students, is what we think about is, does this company want me? That should be a factor. That should be something on the list.
And why do they want me?
And why do they want me? Yeah. Like, I guess I'd be curious. One final question, students. Why do you want whatever company ends up hiring, why do you want them to want to hire you? Think about that. Like not necessarily like, why do they specifically want you? Like, what about you do you want to have shine in whatever working environment that you're going to work for? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that, because I think it's a question I've never asked our students before, but I think it would be really fascinating to know. I don't think, I mean, shoot, I don't even know if I've thought about this. Like, this is, yeah, it's like a question about like, how do you want to be wanted?
Yeah, and think about like, you know, there's always that phrase called salting, right? Like when a union's trying to infiltrate, they do salting, which is they get someone hired in who can start sharing their opinions to build that momentum. So I often want to ask someone, or when I have when I'm working as a business partner and I have a team that's struggling, they have some toxicity or they have something else going on, I want to bring a salter into that. I want to infiltrate the group with a salter, someone who's going to bring forward the right ideas, the right actions, the right motivations, the right perspective in order to salt and improve, be that grassroots improvement to what we need to have in the organization. So as you are interviewing, what do you bring? What is the salt, right? You can go back to biblical and the salt and the light, but I'm really just saying, what is your salt? What do you bring forward that makes the room better than how you found it?
And that you like to do.
That starts to answer that question of what do I bring? What makes the room better? 60% of employment decisions are made when you're not in the room. Once you're like promotions, right? How much the decisions are made about what is said about you when you're not in the room. So think about how you behave and how you act. And if you were to leave the room, what people would say about you. Those are all indicating behaviors of self-awareness and reflection on who you need to be in order to get that job. Not who you want. Like we judge, what is that? We judge people on their best intent, on their actions, but ourselves on our best intentions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm processing that.
So don't focus on your best intentions, focus on your actions and what are your actions in the room, because you go back to the star-based interview. A star-based interview, behavior based, is all based off of your actions, because previous actions are a very good indicator of future-based performance.
I love it. This has been a really cool workshop. Marcie, thanks for being here. This one really cool. Students, thank you all for being here. One final question, Marcie. How can our students learn more about you? I know that they're all on LinkedIn and that sort of stuff. Would you be all right with them connecting with you on LinkedIn?
Oh, absolutely. Love it to have you join me on LinkedIn. I try to be pretty vocal on it and try to be involved in women's leadership and HR in the state and community, and anything I can do to spread and share and network. Love it. LinkedIn, delete Instagram and Facebook and TikTok from your phone. As you are career searching, the only app that you should be spending your time on is LinkedIn.
That's awesome. Marcie, you're amazing. I appreciate you. Students, thanks for being here. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your evening. See everybody.